Today's episode is sponsored by the Christian Standard Bible. The goal of the CSB is to be faithful to the original languages without sacrificing clarity, all the while maintaining both accuracy and readability. With beautiful designs and multiple study Bible options, everyone, from adults to teens to children, can find a CSB Bible that they enjoy. Learn more at csbible.com.
Welcome to Real Talk Christian Podcast, where we drink coffee and have real conversations on faith, culture, and society. This is Mark Hyde.
And Chris Fuller.
And on today's episode of Real Talk Christians, we're talking about Christians and guns. Seems like many Protestant evangelical Christian days are all about their Second Amendment and the right and ability to own firearms. But how should Christians think about guns? Fuller, you ready to have this conversation?
Pew pew, let's go.
Hey, Fuller.
Yes, sir.
How come a stormtrooper never had a girlfriend?
How come?
Because he always missed a shot.
Pew pew, pew pew.
I came up with that right here on the fly. You went pew pew, and I'm like, that sounds like
Pew,
a little
pew,
like
pew.
stormtrooper, bro. So, you're a big Star Wars fan, right?
Yeah, I am.
I think we talked about like which ones you love, which ones you. We did that recently.
Yeah, it was like
I don't know. It was recent, but okay,
10 episodes ago. I don't know.
maybe. So here's a fun question for you, because a lot of times I should say, do you like Indiana Jones movies
yes.
too? Would you rather watch Indiana Jones or Star Wars?
Ooh,
We're playing this or that apparently right off the bat.
You're naughty, Raskus.
Would you rather watch an Indiana Jones or Star Wars? OG Star Wars if you want.
Okay, if it had to come to the prequels, episodes 1, 2, and 3, I would say Indiana Jones.
No, I'm not talking prequels. I'm talking the good ones.
If I have to go 4, 5, and 6,
Yep.
I would choose Star Wars. If I had to go 7, 8, 9, Rogue One,
All the other ones.
I would say Indiana Jones.
See, I would say Indiana Jones for all of them.
I love Indiana Jones, but
Raiders of the
I
Lost
love
Ark.
I love
Temple
the
of Doom's
full-
a little. That was a little spooky when I was a little kid. A
little bit.
But what was the third Indiana Jones? Not the skull one.
Last Crusade. There was Last Crusade, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Temple of Doom.
That's what I'm thinking. Last Crusade. That was the one with trying to find the Ark of the Covenant.
No.
Right? No. Or the
That was the Raiders of the Lost
Raiders of
Ark.
the Lost Ark. Well, obviously Lost Ark. Was that about the
That was
the Holy Sepulchre?
Yeah, it was like Indiana Jones. It starts off Indiana Jones on the train, like
Right, they're trying to find the cup, the
Yeah,
chalice.
right.
'Cause
Yeah.
I get that
Holy
in
Grail.
the Holy Grail thing. I get that in the Da Vinci Code kind of
Yeah.
messed up. I know it's a chalice. It's a cup
chalice.
that you just drink at the Last Supper.
The best part, though, have you ever watched the making of like the Raiders of the Lost Ark when like the Nazis melt when they open the Ark? Like the concept behind how they did that and got
No.
that shot. Oh, it's phenomenal. You got to look it up.
Really?
It's too long to explain, but you got to go look it up. It's awesome.
And it's old
It's
school.
basically
It's
like-
old school
It's
CGI.
basically like no, it's not even CGI. It's like wax, and like they did fake blood inside this like wax, and then they melted it with flames, and that's where the melting came from.
So they legit melted because they were...
Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
Fun facts with Fuller.
Fun facts with pew pew.
Well, so since we've already done this or that, should we just lean into it and just do some more this or that? What do you think?
Let's just do this.
Let's just do this right now. Let's just do
You want
it.
to pull it up?
Let's pull it up.
I'll pull it up.
I'm in the mood.
This or that. All right, hang on. I got to get through the commercials here. Whoa.
Jeez, I thought we already went through the commercials.
Wuduku was trying to get me. Okay, would you rather have your dream house or your dream car?
Do I have to pay a mortgage or
No,
all the other things?
we'll say free for both.
House? Now, what would be involved in your dream house?
My dream house
Uh-huh.
would be on a lake in the mountains, and it'd be like a big log cabin
I
style.
love how yours is more about the scenery. Mine's more about I just want someone to clean it.
Oh,
A self-cleaning house. You put the
housekeeping.
dishes in the sink.
Oh,
How dope would that be? You're like, all right, just put the dishes in the sink. You come back, you're like, yo, it's clean.
Yeah, they did something like that. It's called the Jetsons.
Or have you ever seen Smart House from Disney and then like it turned into a real person and they like locked the family in the house, protect it? That's
Yes.
like OG Disney Channel movie.
Well, they also redid it with the new Mickey on Disney Channel or the Disney app. They did a Mickey one where it was like a smart house, and yeah, it was a play off of that. Anyways, 83% of
Mickey Mouse
people.
Club's house, you mean?
The new Mickeys, I don't know what they're called.
Who knows?
But 83% would agree with us on the house.
All right.
17% said they'd rather have a car.
Cars depreciate, man. What are you talking about?
Yeah, they don't last so long. But houses can last forever. Not really.
Not really, no.
All right, would you rather be a faster sprinter than Usain Bolt in his prime, or be a faster swimmer than Michael Phelps in his prime?
Runner.
Yeah, me too. Dead.
I'd rather be a faster runner.
72% said runner.
Really?
28% said swimmer.
You know why? Because you can't be faster than Michael Phelps. That's just
run, Forrest, run. Oh, sorry.
You want to know something crazy to think about? Like you and I, we watched those Olympic Games, right?
Yeah.
That's history for like the younger generation.
Yeah, you think about it.
That's history.
There's people in our youth group that never knew about that. Like,
well, they only know about because of history.
Right, they were babies, though.
Like, we experienced it, man.
Like, I remember watching all those. But anyways, so would you rather have a large painting of yourself or a large sculpture of yourself? Like a David or like a Mona Lisa?
That's about to say, I'm like, a David, that's a little too personal. David's a little too personal.
We'll put the leaf in front
I was
of you.
thinking more like Newt Rockney in front of Notre Dame. That's what I was thinking.
Oh, okay.
You're over here thinking naked David. I would say probably painting.
I'd say painting.
I'd say painting. I think painting would be cool.
38% said painting.
What?
62% said sculpture.
Wow, because y'all are vain.
Y'all
are
We're sitting
vain.
here wanting a painting.
Bro, we want a painting to be like, hey, look how cool we be. And people are like, nah, I want a freaking statue.
I want something I can touch.
I mean, it is cool to go like the United Center. You see Jordan out front. I think that they got a Kobe one now in front of the Staples Center now. Maybe they're not done with it. But like, we got Newt Rockney in Notre Dame. You got Vince Lombardi at Lambeau.
I think we got Lou Holtz in Notre Dame too. Anybody that's won that's won a national championship.
Do we have Lou Holtz yet?
I thought so. But anybody that's won a national championship at Notre Dame gets a statue. Because that's what Brian Kelly said. He goes, because he's got the most wins.
Got the most wins
out of everybody.
But he does not have
a
national
championship.
championship.
I don't have a statue outside, which you have to win a national championship. So he goes, my job's not finished. I don't have a statue. I'm like, well, he's going for the whole shebang.
I actually was a little nervous they were going to can his butt just to make sure he did not get more wins.
I was a little nervous too.
I was nervous.
I'm glad they didn't though, because
he's a good coach.
He's a great coach. Anywho, let's move on.
Cool. So
Notre Dame talk.
Here's the problem with this episode.
There's no coffee.
Because at this rate, we're gonna get home at midnight, and I want to sleep.
It's currently 9:35 p.m. on a Friday night for us.
But it's cool though. But
the
we've
cool
had a
thing
good
was
afternoon. We've had a good break in between the episodes.
So yeah, we did an episode, and then one of our listeners gave us a call and left a message yesterday, and so we decided.
And he said, "Call us back."
Yeah, he said, "Call me back."
We don't play games.
He goes, "Or you don't," and so we're like, "Challenge accepted." So we gave him a call back, and we had a great, I don't know,
half hour,
45-minute conversation with him. It was phenomenal. Got to hear his testimony, and
just someone who was at the lowest of lows, addicted to drugs, in jail, and then found Jesus.
Right. Yeah. It was so cool to be able to actually get to talk to somebody, and his name was Dustin Slade.
You forgot already.
I knew the first name.
Dustin, if you're listening, bro, driving your truck, we love you, homie. That was a cool conversation.
We love you, buddy. I know you're like, wait, that was a long time ago. Well,
so we did that. I complained about clients.
We did visual concept designing. I've got 4 or 5 designs
I'm
over
struggling
there.
with helping a client figure out what logo they actually
we did
want.
that. Then we talked about some CRT.
Talked about some Jesus.
Talked about a lot of Jesus. And then we're like, hey, we probably
should record. Now I will say we're hyped up on, we had coffee. We had that caffeinated Cliff Bar last episode from Beth.
Right.
This is episode number 2 for the night.
We did the Peruvian coffee from Brew It Forward.
Yeah. I still have a little bit.
Company.
Dude, last episode, the Thanksgiving one, I couldn't stop coughing.
Okay. Well, the Thanksgiving one was actually like several episodes ago. Oh no, it was last episode.
No, last week.
I'm sorry.
You're thinking Halloween.
I'm thinking Halloween
because we had to we had to sneak Halloween 4 episodes early.
We're like, hey, we forgot to do a Halloween episode.
Let's do it right now.
We got to do it now.
But I couldn't stop coughing, and I had a headache, and I'm just like, I'm gonna die. So I actually got up and walked around the camera and got my water because I'm like, I am not
You're like,
okay.
Hey, keep going. I'm like, okay, I'm nervous now. So
now I have squirt.
So
I'm drinking my squirt.
Check out the Brew It Forward Coffee Company. Remember, coupon code RTC will get you 10% off.
Not the subscription, just the normal bag of coffee.
But if you get a subscription, you get free shipping.
Free shipping and $18 for a pound of coffee. That is
roasted, ready to go, fresh
shipped,
roasted.
Gets to your house in 3 to 4 days.
Yeah.
Like it is
Like after
it's
roast.
quick.
It's like 3 to 4 days after roast.
Yeah, Jared and Marianne, they do a good job
Phenomenal.
with that. So I have a quick fun fact for you. So I'm drinking
fact,
Squirt.
Squirt.
I actually finished it because it was a baby can.
Squirt.
But did you know that if you drink too much Squirt, you can get grapefruit poisoning?
What?
So my old college roommate, Micah Bordez, I don't know if he's listening. If you're listening, what's up, Micah? So I got him hooked on this stuff, right? And so he went back after Christmas break, told his brother about it, and his brother bought, and this is all he drank. He bought a ton. This is all he drank nonstop. And then all of a sudden he got so sick. He went to the doctor, and the doctor was like, "Dude, what have you been like? What? Tell me about your diet, because this doesn't make sense. What's going on?" And he's like, "I don't know." He goes, "You've been drinking something weird? Just I don't know, kombucha? I don't know." And he goes, "Oh, I've been drinking a lot of Squirt." And he's like, "You have grapefruit poisoning."
So how? Because it's got less than 1% juice on it.
You have to drink that much Squirt.
Holy
But if you
moly.
drink that much Squirt, you can get grapefruit poisoning.
Wow.
Which I don't recommend. That's a serious problem.
You know, okay. Would you rather Squirt or Sunkissed?
Oh, Squirt all day long.
Really? Sunkissed for me, man. That one.
Like orange Sunkist.
Oh,
orange
yeah.
Sunkist hits the spot.
On
But
a
that-
hot day, a nice ice cold
But that
Sunkist.
Squirt, Squirt just hits different. Squirt hits different. But I also never had Squirt until I was in high school. Whereas I grew up having orange pop, you know?
I'm not a grapefruit fan, so I don't like Squirt.
I'm not the biggest, but Squirt just is
weird like
different. Squirt's different.
Yeah.
But
Anyways, let's jump on to our review. We've talked
'cause
about coffee.
you
We've
know
talked
what,
about
dude?
Squirt.
It seems like every week we have a new review.
Thank you, all that listen and
Which
contribute and get a
is
hold of us.
awesome. Now, this one, I don't know how this dude listens to us so much. I really don't. I don't know how he does it. But
It's our soothing personalities.
yeah, your soothing personality.
I don't know what you're talking about.
But anyway, this is from Trenton B. He actually lets his
Trenton
name.
B.
Trenton B. He says, just recently found this podcast. However, I've been listening to 1 to 3 episodes per day while I'm at work.
1 to 3.
Mark and Chris are two really cool guys. You get to know them from the different fun questions, like Question in a Box, which means he's a rewinder.
Yes, he is. Thank you.
And I connected, which is awesome. I'm studying to be a pastor, and each episode I have listened to has taught or reminded me of really good material, and I think they have important discussions that more believers need to hear so that they can grow in their faith. Final thought. I like it. Final thought. At the end of the day. That's what you should have said. You should have
At
said,
the end of the day,
I appreciate that they remind us listeners that they are not here to replace the church, but to be our supplement gummies.
yeah.
Thanks for the podcast, guys. And you inspired me to start up a podcast with my close friend, too. Yo, let us know what the name of your podcast is, Trenton. I want to know.
Yeah, me too. But we're the Flintstones of his day. The supplement.
I was thinking vitamin C, but we the Flintstone gummies. Were you
chewables.
Flintstone gummies or were you a
chewable.
tablet? Oh,
I'm a
no, dude.
chewable,
Those
man.
are gross.
Oh, they're
gummies.
delicious.
I can't. Okay.
Oh, I used to want to eat them like candy all the time.
So the only vitamins I will take, like I've even tried taking like the vitamin pills because it's easier. No, I will only do gummies because I'm a kid, because I'm a child. I'm a grown child because I want fruit snacks. So
I don't think anybody will disagree with you.
no,
on that.
no one will disagree with me. I don't eat fruit snacks as much as I used to because they're in the basement and I don't see them as much.
Dang it! I have to walk all the way to the basement.
Well, because at the old house, anytime I went to grab coffee, the fruit snacks were right next to it. So your boy would have fruit snacks and coffee in the morning and at night.
That's
and
right.
in the
I
afternoon.
still enjoy a nice good old bowl of Fruity Pebbles. So
See, I've never been a big Fruity Pebble guy.
No,
I want Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Fruit Loops, Apple Jacks, those are good. Reese Puffs. Reese Puffs.
Cookie Crisps.
Oh, we recently introduced the kids to Cookie Crisp, and they
Cookie Crisps.
freaked out whenever we buy. They're like, cookies!
Cookies for breakfast.
And exactly, we're like, here's all the fake vitamins that came with it.
I just want to know, where was the Lucky Charms marshmallows only when we were kids?
At the Amish store, bro.
Really?
Go to
'Cause
the Amish
I couldn't-
stores.
I couldn't find them when I was a kid. So I would always I'd pick out the marshmallows because I had to eat the whole thing.
Right,
So
right.
then I'd eat the regular cereal, and I'm like, and I'd usually I'm a fat kid, so I'd throw some sugar on top of it. And
Frosted Flakes with extra sugar on top.
and then I would throw the marshmallows back in and start eating the marshmallow cereal. Like that's how OG I was.
But I feel that. I relate to that.
Yeah.
But if you go to the Amish stores like Grandma's Pantry in Wakarusa or down to
You can
Shipshewana or
get
Napanee, you can get a freaking huge container of just the marshmallows.
So I want to know who, they get a sorting house and they're like, all right, I'm going to pick out all the marshmallows out of the Lucky Charms.
I mean, if you can't watch TV, you got to do something, I guess.
That's true. That's true.
Oh, goodness. But either way, you are all about them Fruity Pebbles.
I do like Fruity Pebbles. And
you're a Fruit Loop.
Trenton B, thanks for reaching out to us. And any of our other listeners that have left us a review or reached out, hey, listen, we haven't talked about it much, but we still do the little mini swag bags.
And Janelle's apparently in charge of it now.
Yeah,
so
if you reach out to us either through email, DM, PM, text, Gmail, whatever else.
Carrier pigeon.
Yeah.
Whatever you decide to do. Smoke signals.
Let us know your address, and we'll get you a little mini swag bag, which is our bumper sticker or our regular sticker. It's this, if you're watching YouTube, it's that little sticker right there.
It's our logo with the sticker.
And then we got a nice little pin that you could put on your belt or backpack or whatever else. Or if you're not into pins, you can give it to your kids. So
there you go.
Yeah, we do that, and that's our little mini swag bag as a thank you to you for listening and being part of our RTC family.
And just saying thank you.
Just a thank you.
I love it.
You know, we should talk about eventually another giveaway, but not right now. But eventually we should do another giveaway.
That thought crossed my mind today.
We're coming up on Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
We might need another giveaway.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm feeling it.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe we'll do a New Year giveaway.
Oh, okay.
Like do it in the New Year.
New Year, new you.
Ooh.
New Year, new you, new do.
I don't know.
RTC hair
Maybe
cream?
we'll do like a couple new like RTC thingamajigs. Designs.
There, I'm like thingamajigs.
Thingamabobs. You know, the doohickeys.
The doohickey that goes on the thingamabob and does the wing diggy thing.
As Scuttle would say from Little Mermaid. The dingle hoppers.
But either way, reach out to us because we want to get that to you. It might be a little slow, or if I forgot to send it.
It won't be slow anymore. If you get to us, Janelle will probably have it out within the week.
Which is dope.
Which is really quick because Mark and I were like 2-3 weeks.
We just couldn't even get, but yeah, life was
But
nuts.
we're not, I mean, sorry, but we work.
Sorry, but sorry. But
sorry, but sorry.
Either way, dude. So let's jump into the conversation for
dive into it. It's
the
only
day.
been 17 minutes.
There you go.
All right, let's dive
I
into
love how
it.
we always say the timestamp when we do that too, and people probably go, "Oh, it's only felt like 2," but probably.
Or
not.
people are like, "Yeah, goodness, it's about time."
So
we get both sides of it.
We do. We really do, and that's we do
some
us,
people-
baby. We do us.
Some people are like, "Go more," and some people are like, "Hey, can you cut it down to like a minute?"
Like Janelle.
Well, yeah, and some other listeners.
That's
we've
true.
had.
That's true. But that's fine. We
That's
do
all
what we
right.
do.
You know what? We are sorry to those who don't like it, and you're welcome to those who do.
Moving on.
Moving on.
So this actually was texted to me. Not texted. I'm sorry. Direct messaged to us.
I thought it was Instagram.
Instagram. Well,
Yeah,
that's direct
right.
message. So yeah. So it was in Instagram, and they were like, "Hey, what about guns?" And I'm like, "You know what? Let's talk about it now."
That's a good one.
So this one guy, he reached out to us. We were messaging back and forth a little bit, and we were just like, "Hey, let's have a conversation." He goes, "Cool." Out of the blue, he goes, "How about guns?" And I'm like, "We're gonna do that this week."
Yeah.
So I mean, it obviously took a little bit to come out, but
Right.
I was like, "We're gonna do it this week," and I think that's a fair conversation, especially with all what's happening in America right now, where
Sure.
there's potentially going to be more gun restrictions. Some places are trying to have like completely outlawed guns. Some people are trying to fight for more gun rights. And so how should Christians think about guns and firearms? And even though we have to talk about the Second Amendment, because that's a big part of this
because we live in
conversation,
the States.
Because we live in the States. So if you live outside of the States, I mean,
Write us and tell us what your opinion is on
Right.
guns and stuff.
yeah, it's true, because I know different countries think about different things. Like
Sure.
British people look at us and go, "Why are you guys so obsessed about guns?
Right.
Like, we want them outlawed over here. Why are you so obsessed with it?" And so I think part of that goes back to how America was born and how we were raised and all these different things. Some of it depending upon where you live, because
Right.
if you live in Montana, very different than living in New York City. And
Yeah.
that's the interesting about America is we have such different cultures
Yeah.
founded even in the state.
Sure.
We look at Indiana.
Yeah, depending on where you're at in India. If you're in
Depends
Indianapolis.
where you live in South Bend.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you live on the west side, you're a gun toter.
Well, sure. And then you got, if you live more on the southern part or outside city limits, you might be a farmer or
Yeah,
you might
right.
be inner city. Like, I mean,
Right.
it's a very unique culture with not just culture of South Bend, but America in general. But part of this conversation also comes up because lately, specifically with the one shooting in the church where the guy walked in kind of sketch with like the weird, I think he had a wig.
Did you just
and
say
the
kind of sketch?
kind of sketch. He came in, he was kind of sketch. Like he wasn't so much where like, but basically he walked in and then during communion gunned down 2 people. There was hesitation and then finally someone,
Popped him.
popped him to save the rest of the church. And there's been, the shootings down at the church in
Oh, there's been all sorts of shootings all over the
Baltimore,
States.
I think there was one. There was
The recent
Alabama,
one.
there was the mosque.
The recent shooting, though, was Alec Baldwin on the set of his new movie Rust with the prop gun and killed somebody.
And that's asking even more questions about how we should handle firearms in general. And, there's Christians on both sides of the debate. I was talking with a friend of mine, and he's very much with the fact of, if the government says give up your guns, give them up. And then there's other people where it's like, over my dead body.
You can pry it from my cold, dead fingers.
But seriously, though, and both sides are the ones where it's like, okay, stop being John Wayne Christians. Well, okay, well, stop being wusses. And so it's like, even though if whatever place you find yourself in, you generally have a strong opinion, but then once you go outside of your general circles, you're like, oh, there's other opinions on this matter. Sure. I did not know that.
Yeah, sure.
But, with shootings like the Columbine incident, when the gunman went in and killed all the Amish, when there's gunmen taking out people in mosques now and churches, and there's the gun violence. It's gun violence sees no gender, race, religion. It doesn't matter. There's just gun violence, and a lot of people say, okay, so since there's gun violence, violence breeds more violence. We need to take away the thing that's causing the violence. And then there's the other side of the equation where it's like, this is what preserves the peace, yo. Like.
Well, my argument to it, and it's been my argument forever, is, well, we see in Genesis a stone was used as a weapon. So really, is it the tool or is it the person?
And we'll talk about it. So obviously, we have to talk about the Second Amendment, because that's where a lot of Christians talk about the fact of, these are my Second Amendment rights.
In America.
And I'm going to say, we're going to come back to the fact of, should you even be fighting for that right as a Christian? Because that's a question that some people have.
Sure.
But just to make sure we're all on the same page, this is for reference, just so we all know what we're talking about. The Second Amendment of the Constitution of the United States, when this was founded, this was not a... this is amendment to the original Constitution, but this is a amendment since the beginning of our country. Like, it's been here since the beginning. It's an OG law. How about that?
Right.
It gives the rights to keep and bear arms, and that the government cannot infringe on that right. And they say it's not a privilege, it's a right. As an American, you have the right.
Sure.
No one can tell you otherwise.
Sure.
Now, obviously, if you're a murderer, we're not going to give you one of those.
Right.
Like, it had background checks and all these different things. Yeah, of course. And so, but then moving forward, one of the most, there was pretty much no question on that for years. And then in 2008, there was, District of Columbia, D.C. versus Heller. On June 26, 2008, the Supreme Court affirmed the Second Amendment guarantees the individual right to keep and bear arms for lawful uses. The ruling read in part that the Second Amendment protects individual rights, again, the rights to possess a firearm, unconnected with service in a militia, and to use that arm for traditionally lawful purposes, such as self-defense within a home. And then there was another court case in Chicago, and I don't have the year written down, I just know it's off the top of my head, where they were still trying to fight, where it's like, okay, that's fine, but we still need to ban it because of all the gun violence that we have here. So even though it's a right,
and yet
does it need to actually be a right?
And yet in Chicago, it's one of the most murderous cities in America, and they've banned guns.
No, they didn't. They did.
They have banned guns.
Have they banned guns?
You're not allowed to carry a gun.
That's right, you can't still carry. And that was part of, I remember, on mission trips.
So really, what did it do for them? Big goose egg.
Right, but now there are arguments, and it's true, there's other countries over in England where they, they have banned guns.
Sure.
And there is no gun violence,
Australia, they had
basically.
a gun buyout over in Australia years ago, to where they bought all the guns. The government did. Hey, bring us your gun. We're going to give you so much money. And they destroyed the guns.
And now, and there are some successes in that. But the question, though, isn't so much on the political side of what should we do, but the fact of, as Christians, how should we think about it? Because there's generally two schools of thought. There's the pacifist side, and then there's the pro-liberty side, I think is the best way to describe that. How would you describe it? Not pro-liberty, but pretty much the fact of, this is an American right. You have the right to defend yourself and defend your home. And be prepared.
We're saying guns, but this is something that has been done throughout history, thousands of years of, hey, I mean, we look at the story of Abraham, and when Lot was carried off, what did Abraham do? He gathered up his men and his servants, and he went and took back Lot, right, with swords. So, we're saying guns. We're kind of picking on guns, but I would say weaponry, self-defense weaponry. I don't know what you would call it, but yeah. So, anyways,
And you have to, and this is what a lot of people talk about, especially in the church world. Like I'm pulling up a website that I actually built for a local guy. Our church security team, I would say, is
top notch.
Absolutely top notch. And part of that is because the guy who runs it, I mean, he's a state trooper who also has a separate business, not connected to the state at all, where he literally travels around the country to actually train churches on how to prepare for actual performance-based situational training.
Right.
And he even talks about there's 4 levels of competency: unconscious incompetence, you don't know what you don't know; conscious incompetence, you know how much you don't know; conscious competence, and then like all these different things. And basically the fact of, if you are not trained for a given situation, you will respond poorly, which will cause more damage than good. So the answer is not nothing. The answer is train for the situation in the right way, with the right methods, with the right mindset.
Sure.
So if something happens, it actually does more good than bad, because he was talking about if you are incompetent and you're unknowing about it and you try to do something to resolve a situation, the chances of you making it worse just grow.
And I think part of it goes back to the whole fight or flight. Fight, flight, or freeze. It's a natural human response, and every human's going to do one of the three. They're either going to freeze in a situation, they're going to try to fight, even whether they know how to do it or not, or they're going to flee. Which is the flight method. So.
Right. So before we even get to the Bible says, I want to just read some of the questions that I think would be fun for us to talk about tonight.
Sure.
We're not going to answer them yet.
Sure.
Just questions.
All right. I'll be quiet.
All right. So some of the questions that I was even thinking about is how should a Christian think about guns in light of just the world, not the Second Amendment, just in general. But at the same token, the fact of, okay, so we have the right to bear arms as Americans, but should Christians fight to keep that right? Or is that the wrong thing to be fighting for? Should Christians be okay with using and owning guns? Should Christians fight for more strict gun laws to protect people, or should we fight for more pro-guns so that people can protect themselves? Should Christians arm themselves and then train to defend themselves, and then train their church members to defend other people as well? If the government told us to turn in their guns, what should we do as Christians? If Christians serve in the military police force, should they be allowed to be elders and leaders in the church? If a government becomes so tyrannical, should Christians rise up and fight the government, just like our Constitution gives us the right to? And is the Second Amendment even biblical? Because if you're a Christian and the answer is no, it's not biblical, then why the heck are we fighting for it? But if the answer is yes, then let's go get it. So the question is how should we think about it in general? And it's a big, large question. And normally when people talk about, okay, well, so let's go to the Bible and talk about it. So the Bible says, love your enemies, turn the other cheek. God is omnipotent and sovereign. So why are you putting your trust and faith more in a weapon than you are in God himself? And aren't you bulletproof until God tells you so anyways? And for us being Calvinistic, we see these shooting in churches. Isn't that just part of God's will?
It's an appointed time.
Right. So the fact of, if that's the way it's supposed to be and God's all sovereign and knows what's going on, then why are we wasting our time doing all these things? Shouldn't we just trust God?
Sure.
And I'll jump forward to even this quote, where an argument against guns. Miles Wernz, he's a Mennonite professor.
Okay.
And, this is even after the shooting of all the Amish people who are the Anabaptist movement in general. They are, they're pacifists. Right. And they're not weak sauce. It's just the fact of, we don't fight and we don't have weapons that can hurt other people. Like, we have tools where we can, like, obviously we own knives so we can, like, cut our food. But, we don't have weapons for the sake of just hurting people type thing. And so they are very pacifist. So when the guy went in and shot up in this Amish group, there was, how were they supposed to defend themselves? He killed himself after he shot and killed and hurt a bunch of Amish girls. Right. And even after that, he was so this guy, Miles Wernz, I'll put the link in the show notes. He's opposed to arming church members. He said, worship and a show of force, even in defense of our lives, are incompatible by the light of the New Testament. To combine them, the use of force and worshiping God, is to try to run behind Jesus in our reading of Scripture. So in other words, the fact of, we're trying to run behind him, like trying to sneak past this, where the fact of, no, Jesus says, love your enemy, turn the other cheek. The Bible verse of, I had it written down. Matthew 26:52, where Jesus told Peter, those who live by the sword
Die by the sword.
Die by the sword.
Right.
So why the heck are we training our people to use a modern day sword?
Sure.
Because if we live by it, aren't we going to die by it? And I would say most Americans, especially in the South, out West, Second Amendment right, gun breathing, instead of God Country Notre Dame, it's God Country Guns. Like you see bumper stickers like that around here all the time.
Right.
The Punisher symbol all over the place.
Right.
The military. So it's like, okay, so if Jesus tells us to do these, then why are we going the opposite direction? And that's the argument that a lot of people use against guns. I mean, have you heard any of these before?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I have a buddy who talks about it all the time. But the question is what does the Bible say? And does it actually say anything about it being okay to use guns? Before I get into probably the most popular one with Nehemiah, let's first talk about what the role of the government even is.
Sure.
Because, the government job, we're talking about the military, we're talking about protecting and all these different things. That's what the government does. We have law enforcement, we have military, punish the evil, take care of people. And, in
Right.
Romans 13, 1 through 6, it says, let everyone submit to governing authorities, since there's no authority except from God, and the authorities that exist are instituted by God, which is another one that people say, hey, if they say take away your guns, obey. So then, the one who resists the authority is opposing God's command, and those who oppose it will bring judgment on themselves. For rulers are not a terror to good conduct, but to bad. But you want to be unafraid of the one in authority. Do what is good, and you will have its approval. For God is a servant for your good, and if you do wrong, be afraid, because it does not carry the sword for no reason. So right there, it actually says that the government carries the sword.
Right.
In other words, the Bible even says that the God put in government to rule and to protect, make sure those who do good are okay, they're taken care of, and
Sure.
those who actually do evil are punished. And so God even says, or the Bible says, God gave them the right to do this.
Right.
And he gave them the sword. For it is God's servant and an avenger that brings wrath to the one who does wrong. Therefore, you must submit, not only because of wrath, but also because of your conscience. And for by this reason, you pay taxes, since the authorities are God's servants, continually tending to these tasks. So we pay taxes so the way the government can use force and the sword to punish what's evil.
Right.
So right there, the Bible says, firearms potentially and other weapons given to the government to protect its own and also to, make sure the bad people are punished.
Sure.
That's the way God designed it. So right there, we can say, okay, well, firearms themselves are not bad, because God instituted towards,
Right.
the government itself. But so if we go to Nehemiah 4 real quick, I'm going to open up my Bible because I'm just going to read the passage. The headline, actually, when you open your Bible, if you have some Bibles just have the text there, but if you have the little pericope section of hey, this
Right.
is what this area is all about, it actually is called the sword and the trowel of Nehemiah. And of course, there we go. I'm like, it's not working. Okay. So this is a long passage, but we're going to read it, and it's going to be good.
Let's hear it.
Here we go. So, again, read on the CSB because that's what we do. So, Nehemiah, Old Testament, chapter 4, context, he is rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem to protect Israel from invaders. And so he was sent back to do it. So, when Sanballat heard that we were rebuilding the wall, he became furious. He mocked the Jews before his colleagues, and the powerful men of Samaria and said, what are these pathetic Jews doing? Can they really restore it by themselves? Will they offer sacrifices? Will they even ever finish it? Can they bring these burnt stones back to life from the mounds of rubble? Then Tobiah the Ammonite, who was beside him, says, indeed, even if a fox climbed up what they were building, he'd break their stone wall. So they're mocking the snot. Listen, our God, for we are, and this is back to Nehemiah talking. He says, listen, our God, for we are despised. Make their insults return on their own heads, and let them take as plunder to the land of captivity. Do not cover their guilt or let their sin be erased from your sight, because they have angered the builders. In other words, they ticked off the builders because they're making fun of us, what you told us to do. So you can just give them what's coming.
Right.
So Nehemiah continues. So we rebuilt the wall until the entire wall was joined together up to half its height, for the people had the will to keep working. When Sanballat, Tobiah, and the Arabs and the Ammonites and the Ashdodites heard that the repair of the wall of Jerusalem was progressing and that the gaps were actually being closed, they became more furious. They all plotted together to come and fight against Jerusalem and throw it into confusion. So we prayed to our God and stationed guards because of them day and night. So right there, Nehemiah says, we prayed, but we prepared.
Right.
Because we prayed that God would protect us, but, we still were actually active in doing that. In Judah, it was said, the strength of the laborer fails, since there is so much rubble, we will never be able to rebuild the wall. And our enemy says they won't realize it until we're among them and can kill them and stop their work. When the Jews who lived nearby arrived, they said to us time and time again, Everywhere you turn, they attack us. So I stationed people behind the lowest sections of the wall at the vulnerable areas. I stationed them by families with their swords, their spears, and their bows. After I made an inspection, I stood up and said to the nobles, the officials, and the rest of the people, don't be afraid of them. Remember the great and awe-inspiring Lord and fight for your countrymen, you sons and daughters, your wives, and your homes. So he just said, remember how great God is. Oh, and shoot the living daylights out of them. Like, that's really what he said.
Right.
And then this is the sword in the trial. I love this part. When our enemies heard that we knew their scheme and that God had frustrated it, every one of us returned to his work on the wall. From that day on, half of my men did the work while the other half held spears, shield, bows, and armors. The officers supported all the people of Judah who were rebuilding the wall. The laborers who carried the loads worked with one hand and held their weapons in the other. I'm like, dang, that's
Ready to
fire,
go,
man. So they held their weapons and they kept on working with the other. Each of the builders had swords strapped around his waist while he was building, and the one who sounded the ram's horn was besides me, in case there was an actual a threat coming up. Right. Then I said to the nobles and officials and the rest of the people, the work is enormous and spread out, for we are separated far from one another along the wall. Whenever you hear the sound of the ram's horn, rally to us there, and our God will fight for us. Hold up. So our God will fight for us, but we got the swords. Okay.
They got to rally there. God's going to fight for them, but use them to do the fighting.
So we continued the work while half of the men were holding spears from daybreak until the stars came out. At that time, I also said to the people, let everyone and his servant spend the night inside Jerusalem so that they can stand guard by night and work by day. And I, my brothers, my servants, and the men of the guards with me never took off our clothes. In other words, they went.
They were ready to go at all times.
What movie was that where they saw? The Eagle, I think is what it was, with old Channing Tatum, when he was younger. They did that where he trained his men and they were ready to go at night, and then when the Anglo-Saxon attacked, they were ready to go because they slept in their armor and they were ready to fight.
Right.
And I, my brother and servant Martin, we never took off our clothes. Each carried his weapon, even when bathing.
Yeah, there you go. Prepared at all times.
And that also meant they took their weapon. They didn't take their phones with Instagram while they were pooping. They took their swords with them while they were doing their thing. But at the end, people were like, I was not ready for that comment.
I wasn't ready for that comment.
But when you read this passage, it's the fact of Nehemiah trusted God more than any one of us probably listening to this podcast combined. But what did he do? Every single person had a weapon in one hand and a trowel in the other, or if they were working, they had one on their hip. When the ram's horn was blown, they came, they fought like crazy, but they said, our God is awesome and we'll do this. So it's like, okay, so how do we balance knowing that God is sovereign, fights on our behalf, or his children, and guns? Mm-hmm. Is it fair to say, if someone says, oh, well, if you really trust God, you want to need the guns. Is it fair for us to say, you know what? No, God can use us with these things for his own glory, and he's the one who actually did it.
Right.
So I think the going back to one of the questions of, is it fair to say that we believe in an all-sovereign, all-powerful God who knows what's going on, and we can still have weapons to defend ourselves, and that does not go against our belief that God is all-powerful? Can we say that? And I think the answer is, well, from Nehemiah, it seems like it. Now, we obviously don't want to build our theology just on what one person did, because is this just what he did, or is this what we should do? And I think that's a fair question. And some people talk about, the New Testament, we're all about love and forgiveness and grace and acceptance and turn the other cheek. In the Old Testament, man, they slaughter the crap out of everybody.
Well, yeah.
And it's a whole different ball. And how do we handle that when God told them, no, go use your weapons and go holy war them?
Well, there was a difference in how God was dealing between Israel and how he's dealing with us now. There's a huge difference. Then it was a land given to them, and they were told to defend it, right? Mm-hmm. He gave a certain land, and anytime they tried to go outside of that land, they usually lost. But if they were within that land that God had given them, unless they were being punished and taken to captivity for disobedience, God was there to protect them and help them and sent angels to slaughter armies on behalf of them. And hit in God's name, but he also sent them to take the land. I mean, we look at Jericho, and they were commanded to kill every man, woman, child,
beast, livestock,
everything,
the whole
everything.
thing. Yeah.
Saul, we see constantly, when Saul was taking the land, Saul was constantly commanded to do the same thing all the time. And he didn't always listen either. It caused a lot of problems. But so, and then now you get Jesus saying, hey, if you live by the sword, you're going to die by the sword. If my kingdom was of this earth, my disciples would fight, but it is not of this earth.
And I think it's fair to ask the question of, okay, is what Nehemiah is doing, is he living by the sword? Or is he using the sword as a mean of self-defense? He's not going out there and that's like his mantra.
It was a defense, right? It was defending God's land that God gave to the Israelites. So, and I guess that was my point. It was that it was a different calling. I don't know. I'm very torn on this matter.
I am too.
I'm very torn. And I'm going to be honest about that. That I can see both sides. I can see those who say, no, we shouldn't fight. No, we shouldn't defend. And then I see those that, oh, no, we should defend the weak, the helpless, the needy. Those are the people we should defend in any which way we can. Now, let's just go through your questions.
Let's go through it.
Let's go through one by one because it's going to be too hard to try to formulate.
Okay, so here's the first one: is should Christians be okay with using and owning guns?
So, in my opinion, I think that using and owning guns, yes, for sport, hunting. Self-defense, this is where I start to get on that fence of I am not sure. I see it both ways. I see how we're supposed to trust in God, how, when Peter was trying to defend Christ is like, put your sword away, Peter. I mean, that was a different circumstance because
his time had come.
Yeah, he had to go to the cross.
Right.
But then again, we see Paul. We didn't see Paul trying to defend or take up arms against Rome,
but we also see Paul using his Roman citizenship to shut people down.
Exactly. He used to gain access to going to Rome, which was his ultimate goal, which we wanted to do. And
he's like, "Hey, y'all, I'm a Roman. Y'all didn't treat me like
right." So he used his Roman citizen rights, and so it's like, but. There's rights, and then there's God's law.
Is it also different of using what's there versus fighting to make what's there stay there?
See, this is where I'm torn. Right. So I think that God's laws always trump, and not Donald Trump, but trump the laws of the land.
We're talking like Rook here.
Your rights. If America said, well, it's within your right to murder, or rape, or pillage, or whatever, right? If I was a Viking back in the day, that would have been my right as a Viking, is to go rape, murder, pillage, and plunder.
That doesn't make it right.
It does not make it right in the sight of God. And so I always have to obey that higher authority. And so do my rights trump God? No. I don't know where the line is at as far as self-defense.
Okay.
Because I see scripturally how we should defend the innocents. We should, just like why that's the whole reason why we protest abortions. We're defending the innocents, So I could see that aspect, but then I see like we're supposed to be peacemakers, peacekeepers, and some people go, "Yeah, I'm a peacemaker.
Yeah, my gun is what's
take
bringing
them
the
out." Like, and it's like,
and there is some truth to that. Like if someone came in to try to do something to our church, or someone's trying to. Like you hear of all the time of like people who specifically in preschools where it's like an estranged father tries to come get the kid. You show that gun, they back him down.
Well,
and you kept the peace.
I think of our police officers, our brothers that are in arms, in the military, and they're out there trying to keep peace. They're trying to help with the peace.
And their gun is usually a last resort.
Sure. But so first question: should Christians be okay with using and owning guns? Yes, I think we should be okay with using and owning guns. If you're asking my opinion for self-defense, I am unsure. I see it both ways. I have not been convicted one way or the other. I know for me it would be a very last resort. Very last resort if I felt I had to do it. But
I think that's even the way most gun people feel. Like I know people in our church who are very big gun owners, and they say to my face, "I pray I never have to fire this at somebody."
And I'm torn about it because I don't know if it's biblically right to use it to take somebody's life, because knowing how God feels about every life. And so right now I would say I probably would only use it if it was like first I would try to assess the situation and say, hey, can I physically manhandle this person out of whatever they're doing and restrain them? Because that's what I want to preserve life. Even that type of life that would come into a church and shoot, even if it's sacrificing myself to try to prevent it. But if it comes to I can't and my only option is a gun, my first inclination right now is, okay, I would use it.
Mm-hmm.
If
it's you or my wife.
I'm not saying it's biblical. I'm just giving you my raw emotions with it right now.
Now, can I ask, do you own a gun?
I do. I own several. Yep.
And for me, I don't own one, and I'm not gonna say I never will.
Sure.
But as of where I'm right now, I will never own
Sure.
one, and that's not because I think they're wrong, and
Sure.
I think it's a right as an American to own one.
Sure.
But I don't because of I hear too many horror stories of kids, and I have curious kids.
Yeah. See, I keep my weapons locked up in a safe.
And like you hear of all these, teenagers, and because even let's go see my dad's gun, and which again, people would argue, well, that's good. You need to train your kids. Well, sorry, I know. But for me, it's the fact of I struggle with depression, anxiety, and being openly candid. This week, I had 2 breakdowns this week.
Right.
And it was not okay. And I mean, I didn't hurt anybody, but I emotionally felt so low.
Right.
Why would I even want that in front of me?
Yeah, and at that point, you have to decide that, and I think you're making the right decision.
And for me, I'm like, what's the purpose? Like, and people say, oh, if someone breaks in, call the cops. Well, first off, I mean, ain't no cop gonna get there fast enough. Like, that's just a bullet is faster than a phone call. I get that, and I understand it. Sure. And I'm not trying to be like, oh, I trust in God's sovereignty. So if someone comes in, breaks, and try to take my kids and my wife, I'm just gonna be like, bye, guys.
No,
this is God's. I mean,
thinking about where my weapons are at.
I know.
I don't walk around my house with my gun on me.
Right.
I don't. And so if they broke into my house, I'm gonna throw myself in harm's way to protect my family.
Mm-hmm.
I probably won't be able to get to my gun in time, so it's gonna be a physical manhandling. Luckily, I'm a big dude, so I might come out okay. Maybe.
I mean, I've walked around my house with my baseball bat. Like,
yeah, but typically, like if somebody's breaking into your house, I mean, you're in bed, and so it depends on what you have. So, I mean, yeah, I would recommend if you feel that way, then hey, the best thing to do is baseball bat by your bed. That way, you've got something, you know. So I see a lot of good uses with guns, right? You could do sporting with the guns and hunting. I see many stories of the Old Testament, New Testament that they were hunters, and just that's how they provided. And I know I have a lot of personal friends that like to hunt. And so they own guns because
they enjoy it. Yeah,
they don't plan on ever shooting anybody.
And I've gone to ranges and I've shot, and I
Sure.
actually have a good shot. But I just choose personally.
Sure.
That's for me.
Sure,
I don't want them in my house.
Sure. So let's move on to the next question: should Christians fight for strict gun laws?
Or I'll say for more, even more strict.
So
right now.
I would say that I don't think Christians should, personally. I think this is one of those aspects that it was a right of the founding fathers. Now, I think you got to do a background check, especially if you're going to conceal carry. It's a pretty rigorous process to conceal carry in most states.
But Indiana, it's really easy.
Indiana, it's a little bit easier, but I know in Michigan, it's like you got to go before a gun board, and it's like if you lie on any application, they're going to dig around. If you lie, you ain't getting a permit.
And I like that, actually. I'm not going to lie.
And
like that.
To me, the background check is sufficient, to me, my opinion. If it's done properly and the way it should be done, you should be able to see with the background check because they'll have to put down mental condition, and stuff like that, mental evaluations, criminal history. And I do not believe that a gun should be in the hands of a criminal, because that's one of those rights that when you do certain things, you lose rights. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the basis of our country. And so just like they lose vote, if you're a criminal, you lose voting rights. You don't get to vote no more in the elections. And so that's the consequence of doing wrong in this country, and that's a law that's established. You do this, you lose your right. All right, I can go with that. And so, to me, no, I think that the gun laws are strict enough. In some states like Michigan, I think they're a little too strict. I think if we're going by personally an American standard, I think it's infringing upon American rights.
But then the question goes, and we're going to get to that, is the American right, should that even be the case for Americans? Because at the end of the day, this doesn't sound really bad. If we answer to a higher calling, like what you said, even though this is an American right, cool. Is that still right for Christians, though?
And I'd like, if we're going to talk about it later, I'm going to save my answer.
We'll save it. We're going to save that one. That's the final one. That's the final one.
So let's. So
should I fight for? Do I think Christians should fight for more strict gun laws? Yeah. If they are in the political realm, I would actually say, yeah.
Yeah. So
I want to say fair.
I don't think either one of us are on a hill that we're gonna die on this hill, and this is my opinion, and this is where I'm staying. Like, to me, this is where I'm at right now.
And so then the next one, and this is a big one again with the Anabaptists. So Mennonite.
Sure.
Anabaptist is a huge movement over in Europe still, and there's even a lot of other Christian movements here in the United States. But should Christians arm themselves? Like this one quote of this guy is like, you can't have worship and self-defense. Like, should Christians arm and then train themselves to defend themselves and their people around them? Like, should Christians arm themselves?
This is one of those hairy moments for me. So I'm kind of divided. I've done some training. I've done quite a bit of training, and I'm armed, obviously. I don't think it's a bad thing to have training, and I think especially if it's would be used in a circumstance where you're defending the innocent with the training, along with the being armed, that gun or that weapon is a last defense, and you're going to do everything you can with your training to not have to use your weapon. And so I think I think Christians, if they feel like they should have a weapon for possible self-defense, yes, I 100% think that they should be trained, because you don't want to own a weapon and not be trained. Because that's how people
and
get
not
hurt.
Go to the range and shoot, but actually
be trained. Actually, make it muscle memory, be trained, and know what you're doing before you hurt somebody else that you don't intend to hurt. I would say that for me, if you can, they teach center mass, right? When you're in training, they teach when you shoot center mass, because that's what's going to stop them.
And it's the biggest target.
And it's the biggest, easiest target if you practice. And to me, it's like, I personally would struggle shooting center mass knowing I'm taking somebody's life. But if I had to do it again, I would at this point do it. But I think training is very important. And I think if you, as a Christian, you're deciding that, hey, I want to have a weapon in my house for self-defense and only use it in a certain self-defense situation, then yes, I believe you should be trained.
And it's like public schools, like we're having a lot of issues here in South Bend.
Sure.
And so they're actually bringing in, because they can't even get enough cops to show up, they're hiring out to a private security firm potentially.
Right.
But like even the Christian schools around here, I would say if not all the Christian schools, they're armed campuses. Like you can't just walk into a school and expect to light it up.
Right.
And so do I think churches should have security teams to protect and defend? Yes, but I also don't think that everyone should just be walking in with their revolver on their hip either. So that's willy-nilly. But it also depends where. That's the hard thing, because it depends where you live.
Well, and that's where.
If you're a rancher in Texas, that's what you do.
But that's, again, we come back to it's in this country, it's a right.
Right.
It's a right that I can open carry here in Indiana with nothing. I got a background check to get my gun.
Yeah, you set that up. Well, you have to have an open carry permit though in Indiana, don't you?
No,
I think you do.
No,
you sure?
Positive. Look it up.
Well, I got a text, a long text, and I'm not really sure.
From Beth?
No, from my mother.
So let's move on.
So to answer the question, should Christians train and defend themselves? I would say if they want to own a gun, then the answer is yes.
Right.
And even for me, I haven't been trained, but I've been taught, here's how you shoot, here's how you load, here's how you should properly point. You should not be pointing the gun up willy-nilly.
Right.
So I've at least have experience with it.
Keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to kill whatever you're pointing at.
But does every Christian, and this is the thing, is like, even like I'm thinking like, okay, there's Christians who are cops.
Right.
There's Christians who are wannabe cops. There's Christians who are wannabe hard-nosers. There's Christians that want to be the punishers.
Sure.
And I'm like, and my question is like, why do you want to carry it? Oh, for my own protection. Or is it because you want to look cool? Like, is there really an active threat you're trying to defend yourself against?
So in this day and age, there is quite a bit of an active threat. I mean, we see it quite often. I don't know how much you've watched about serial killers and all this other stuff, but there's an active threat. Like if you really dig into it and see the sex traffic ring and all sorts of stuff. Even here at the Walmart in the South Side, I think it was 2 years ago or last year, there was a person that was trying to abduct a woman going out to her car right here on the South Side, 10 minutes down the road from this church. And all she was doing was walking her car after shopping. So there is a real threat. So I this is where I said I see both sides of the fence. I see that, okay, do you really need to? But then I see, yeah, some people, yeah, you in this day and age, you probably should. It's turning into the Wild West in this country. But, yeah.
So here's the next question then. If the government said turn in your guns, what would you do?
Oh, man. This is a hard one.
I ain't got no gun to turn in.
This is a hard one. I would say, first of all, I would require them in this country, because I am a citizen, just like Paul invoked his rights, I would invoke my rights. I would say, nope, that goes against my Second Amendment right. And until that was ruled out by the Supreme Court and gone all through the channels, which would take a long, long time, I would not turn it in. But if it came down that, nope, it's gone through all this and you have to turn it in, I'd probably go hide for the hills. I mean, me personally, I don't know. It's hard for me to say, yeah, I'm going to hand over my weapon. It really is. Again, I'm on the side of the fence where I probably would not hand over my weapon necessarily.
And there's a lot of people in this country, well, once that would happen, they would invoke their Second Amendment right to rise up and fight the government.
Well, and that's every oath that our personnel in the military take and the police officers take. It's to defend America, so the citizens of this country, both foreign and domestic, which means against ourselves. This is why we had a civil war, because there was some civil stuff that was going on. So this was a domestic dispute. And so I think that is part of their oath, and that there should be a rising up if it goes against the rights of the foundation of this country and it hasn't gone through the proper channels to be changed.
But then how do we handle, Christians in Rome who were burnt at the stake, who were captured and thrown into the Colosseum and eaten by lions, with entire family units?
Sure. Well, Paul was was it crucified? No.
There's different theories, but
trying to remember which one.
But most people don't believe Paul was crucified. But like Peter, Andrew,
regardless, Paul was killed.
Right.
So
I mean,
he was a Roman citizen.
every of one of the 12 disciples was.
But he took his rights and went to the nth degree with his rights. So much so that he spent years in Rome waiting to appear before Caesar, because that was his right as a Roman citizen. So, I mean,
but he also still stayed in prison the whole way. He wasn't just hanging out and having a good time at the coffee shop,
No, sure. So he was in prison because that was part of the process.
Right, but here's the other question though. But why did Paul want to appeal to Caesar?
Well, because
to defend his right as a Roman?
No, he used it to bring him the gospel. That's
not goal. What I can guarantee. Most people who are gun owners will not use that reason. It's the fact of, this is my right.
But regardless of the reason of it,
not sit down and shut up, but you know what I mean. Like,
regardless of the reason why Paul was doing it, he still invoked a right.
Right.
So he still said, "Hey, I got a valid right here." And so, to me, you got a right. You have the option to invoke that right. Until
and
it's
a right to be heard.
Until it's gone through the proper channels and processes. And after that, then.
But in order to have that, but I'm also on the side where it's like, okay, if you want to use that right to appeal before people, do you obey and then, or do you resist and fight?
I think you make them, it's like this. You have the right to remain silent, right? So they say, well, I'm taking away that.
Anything can be used.
I'm taking away that right. You have to tell me everything right now. What are you going to do? Are you going to obey and tell him everything?
No, I'm going to wait for my lawyer to show up.
Okay, so you invoked a right, and you said, no, you're going to follow the proper channels. I'm invoking my right, and you're going to follow the law. Same with the guns. They do not have a right to infringe upon you. You have the right to bear arms. So you have that right until it goes through the proper channels where that right is no longer valid.
And I agree, and I do agree with that. And I've gone back and forth on this one a lot because it's a hairy issue.
I'm telling you, this is one that's like there's a lot of points of this issue where I'm undecided and I feel one way, but that feeling could change because I'm not solidified in that. These are just where I'm at today.
So if Christians serve in the military police force, which is another big Anabaptist Mennonite belief, I think Brethren churches though don't believe this. But if a Christian serves in the military or a police force, and some people even say politics in general, you have lost your you've lost the opportunity to be an elder in the church, because you can still be a member and active, and we'll love you and you're part of the body, but you won't be an elder because you used your hands for this rather than for spiritual matters.
negative.
Because elders are supposed to be the spiritual leaders of the church.
Sure.
It's kind of, and they do the same approach with David and Solomon, where
Sure.
David goes, or where God told David, your hands are covered in blood, so you won't build my house. But Solomon will.
But his hands were covered in blood because of a selfish, prideful murder that he did. It was an act of murder. It wasn't an act of self-defense.
Was that the reason, or was it just because he was? I don't think that was the reason.
Oh, no, it was because he had Uriah killed. That's the same reason why he lost his son from Bathsheba, and he had blood on his hands from the killing Uriah. And so that's why he was not allowed to build the house for God, and his son would do it. But to me, if Christians serve in the military police force, should they be allowed to be elders in the church? I think yes. I think that there's no stipulation about what your positioning is and where Christ can use you. I feel like we've talked about this. I feel like Christ can use you as a state representative, as a state senator, president of the United States. You can be used anywhere. You could be a leader in the church and have positions. I'm okay with this. I'm okay with you being military or police and being an elder in the church.
And I do too. And I'm actually reading through, and it wasn't just that, but God said, you have spilt much blood on this earth. And so it's the fact of, obviously innocent blood.
Sure.
But also just this. But what did David do? He didn't sit there and go, shucks. Like, let's move on. He actually gathered the materials and did the plans, and Solomon was the one who built it. Right. But which I just think is interesting. Next one, if a government becomes too much
tyrannical.
Yeah, I have a hard time with that word. If tyranny breaks loose, should Christians rise up and join the rising up to fight the government, like the Constitution says it's our right to do?
So this is the big one, right? So
I would say even the big one is the Second Amendment biblical at all?
So the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms.
I don't think it's biblical. I think that's just the way the Founding Fathers wrote it.
I think, I don't think.
I think they also wrote it out of fear of what they used to have.
Right. I don't think it's biblical, but I don't think it's unbiblical. It's one of those gray areas of that's just the rights that people have here, and it's not saying what you can or cannot do with that right.
It's just that's just the way America. Right. It be what it be.
Well, it doesn't say you have the right to take up and bear arms and take on and rise up against the government. It just says the government can't infringe on the right.
I think it does, though.
It just said, wrote.
That was just a little bit. That's not the whole thing.
You'd have to quote it for me.
Let's see. Can Americans...
So while you're looking that up, I guess I'll dive into should Christians rise up and fight against the government like, people want to do all the time. I do not see the early church rising up against Rome. I saw the zealots of the Jewish cult rising up against Rome.
And one of the disciples, Simon, was one of those zealots, which is very interesting to think about that Jesus chose him,
Right, but Jesus called him out of the zealousy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see the early church rising up to fight. I actually don't see the church fighting until the Crusades.
Right. And some of those, they talk about the Knights Templar. Like, the
Sure.
original reason why the Knights Templars were there was to protect pilgrimages.
Sure.
People went back
and that's
forth.
different, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with
Me too, because that's the government
you're guarding.
setting up people. Now, they did it as part of holy orders, which I think is a little weird.
It is weird, but it was a different time period back then, too, where the church had a more powerful role in government. And so I think that my personal belief, and I know it's a very unpopular belief, is that our kingdom is not of this earth. I am not an American citizen as much as I am a citizen of the kingdom of God. And that's where my loyalty should lie. I love the country, and I am thankful God put me in this country to be able to use me in this country for this time. But I do not believe that my allegiance should be to this country. My allegiance should be to God, and I do and go where he sends me. And whether that's here, whether that's Africa, whether that's the Middle East, that's where I go. Wherever God sends me, that's where that's my home, that's my mission field. I'm an ambassador, and an ambassador doesn't mean citizen. We are no longer citizens of this world. We are citizens of a heavenly kingdom and ambassadors to this world. and I take that calling very, very serious. I was born as an American. I'm considered an American citizen, but I consider myself a citizen of the kingdom of God, and that's where my loyalty lies.
And someone might need to, because I'm Googling it right now.
Here, you talk. You give your thoughts on it.
I'm Googling through it, trying to see, what exactly the Declaration of Independence say. This one quick menu says, but when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evixes and designed to reduce them under such deposition, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and provide new guards for their future security, such has been the patient servants of these colonies. So now it's a philosophy. I do know that overthrow a bad tyrannical government is a philosophy of.
So here's the Second Amendment.
Okay.
It's the Constitution.congress.gov. It says a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Right.
That's it. That
is the Second Amendment.
That is the Second Amendment. First Amendment is Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievance. So this is where I think when the government says, hey, we're taking your guns away, this is where we have the First Amendment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it says we have they cannot prohibit the free exercise thereof of abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of people to peaceably assemble, which is what we get. What are they called? I'm thinking strikes, but that's not strikes. It's not riots. What's the word I'm looking for here? Not riots, not strikes. It's where people protest.
Okay,
Jeez. Wow, brain fart. And to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So that means, hey, you got to deal with these grievances we have. We have that right.
Okay. So here you go. So this is straight from the Declaration of Independence. So this is not the Constitution. This is what the people wrote over to England as we declare our independence and we gonna fight you for it.
Sure.
So, this was 1776. So it was I don't know. It was the backbone of a lot of things.
Right.
But anyway.
But just remember, these amendments were amendments to the Constitution.
Right. And
so
this is not the Constitution. This
right.
is straight from the Declaration of Independence.
Sure.
And it says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, which we talked about, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that amongst these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted by men derived their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter it or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. And then it continues on, but when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute deposition, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such a government and provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient's sufferances of these colonies, and such is now such the necessity which constrains them to alter their form of system of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injustices and usurpations, all having direct object of the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. So in other words, they basically say in the Declaration of Independence, when you reach this point, it is the right, in fact, it is the duty of the citizens to rise up and fight that. And that's how America was born.
Sure.
Was we were born out of rebellion.
Sure.
And so the fact of, rebellion is kind of inbred into us as Americans. Let's just be honest.
But how does that compare up to Romans 13?
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying. So the fact of
America born out of the right spirit?
Is the right to rise up against the government? Is the right to fight against the government? And they talk about the fact of, we're gonna even my buddy, he was like, dude, you really think a little militia is gonna rise up against people with nukes? Like, come on now.
Sure.
But at the same time, though, it's the fact of, if this is what our founding fathers had, and we're a Christian nation, so therefore we combine Christianity with the rights of an American, should we have the ability to rise up against a tyrannical government? Or do we say, nope, God gave us this government, so we need to submit and obey? And I think that's where this conversation comes to a head.
Right. Well, and again, it all comes back to obeying the higher authority, right? We're called to obey the government unless it violates the laws of God, and they're asking us to do a sin.
But and that's when they ask us to do a sin, because what did the apostles say to the people? Like, oh, you got to stop talking about Jesus, and they're like, yeah, no, we fear God a lot more than you, so yeah, no, sorry, we can't do that.
Exactly.
So if they tell us we can't stop teaching the truth, we can't stop teaching what the Bible says, then I think we have the right to say no. And this is where it gets awkward even with COVID. And meeting in churches.
But does that mean rise up and rebel? I don't know. I'd just say.
I think it's to use their rights in the proper channels, the way to glorify God, which I do know, like the whole COVID shutdown case. Like, I mean, this is where that argument comes from too, then, of are they shutting down our rights to worship? Or are they just trying to be like, we're trying to protect people and not gather? We're not telling you to stop worshiping. And people had that fight. And I know some pastors have gone through the system of the government. Like I know John MacArthur won a court case against the state of California because he's like, this is my right as an American. I'm gonna use it.
Sure.
And so, and that's where I think the situation gets hairy.
Yes, I agree.
Am I thankful for America? Yes. Do I think God has blessed America? Yes. Do I think America was a Christian nation founded on Christian principles? Not always. Not all of them.
The majority of it, possibly.
I think a lot of it came out of really ticked off dudes.
Yes and no. I agree, but I disagree. I think that the principles of Christian men were there. I just don't know. I'm not.
I say deists. I don't think a lot were Christian. I think a lot were just deists. That there was a higher being and higher power out there.
I see too many writings where they actually name God and Jesus Christ and all this. So
Thomas Jefferson does too until he blacks out all the things.
That's called a redaction.
That's true.
But just because they were Christians, or some of them were Christians, and were trying to do things right. I know some
were, but
right. But just because they were trying to do things right doesn't mean they're inerrant. Are you inerrant? Because I'm sure not.
No.
So are all your opinions right?
Yep.
Okay, well.
No.
Case closed. RTC out.
Bye. but what you're saying is all true, though.
Right. So just because they were Christian doesn't mean that every idea that they came out with was the correct one. But it doesn't make them any less Christians, and it doesn't make this country founded on Christian principles, because there are Christian principles throughout most of our documentation for the establishment of this government.
And I do agree.
Just like in my company that I work for, there are Christian procedures in there, but they don't call them Christians. Like our STEP program is straight out of Scripture of, hey, first you have to go to the person if you have an issue with them. And then if they don't listen, you have to take somebody else with you, and then you discuss it together.
That's Matthew 18,
straight up out of the Scripture. And I'm like, man, these are some biblical principles, not established by a biblical company.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what I'm saying. You see what I mean? It's so a country established out of biblical principles doesn't make it automatically a pure Christian inerrant country. It could be led by Christian men, but not inerrant.
And I think this is where a lot of the thought comes from for me, with the fact of, in one sense, all men are created equal.
Sure.
So therefore, one cannot have tyrannical rule over another, because just because you're a king and I'm, like a prince and the pauper, just because you're a prince doesn't make you any better than a pauper. It's from Scripture that we're all made in the image of God. And I agree. Well,
not only that, but hey, no person should be held in a higher office than the other. That came from that too. And so that's where it's like, okay, there's a biblical principle here.
But we also know that God set up governments to do that too.
Sure.
So it's more the fact of all men are created equal. So therefore, if you're a tyrant, we're going to rise up and shut you down, which is the French Revolution, which was awful. Civil War, so much blood was shed. American Revolution, so much blood was shed.
Sure.
And so was that protecting, and was that self-defense, or were those uprisings?
Sure.
Like we call it Independence Day, whereas England will call it it's not Independence Day over there. And it's the same for like when we talk about the Reformation, the Great Reformation of the Protestant Reformation. The Catholic Church do not call it the Reformation. It's the Great Dissension.
Right.
I think. The Great Schism was the Roman Catholics and the Eastern Orthodox. So when it comes to this, though, the fact of Christians and guns, I think it's fair to say and lean into the fact that I'm American, so I have rights because you gave them to me for being born in this country. So I don't think it's wrong for someone to step into those rights.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, Paul stepped in those rights in order to make God's name known.
Sure.
Now, at the same token, he also held those officials liable for what they were required to do.
Sure.
So if someone steps into this and all of a sudden it's like, you're going out of line here because this is what the law says.
Right.
And, you know, with Americans, we have the ability to, if we don't like something, people always talk about, if you don't like it, go change it at the polls,
Right.
which only goes so far. Let's be honest.
Sure.
But at the same time, you know, there's nothing wrong with protests, and there's nothing wrong with, in my opinion, speaking out of what you want to do.
No, because that is the First Amendment right. That's
right.
another right that was given.
Right,
to
but
us
at the
being
same
born
token,
here.
don't take away the right of somebody. Now, of course, you can't
Sure.
be in a building and yell fire. Like that's not helpful.
Sure, there's stipulations.
Correct. And so, but with this issue specifically of Christians and guns, as a American, yes, we have the right to bear arms, but just because you have the right doesn't mean you have to.
Well, you have the right, but remember how you use that right, you have to answer to God.
And I think that's the thing, is the fact of, are you putting all your faith and hope and trust in this gun to protect you, or are you putting all your faith and hope in God? And it's just one way that you're able to, because that's what Nehemiah did.
And I don't think it's so black and white.
No. But when you look at Nehemiah, he wasn't trusting in the sword to defend Jerusalem.
But
He was defending in God, but he still held it.
But he held the sword everywhere he went.
But they were also being physically attacked
Sure.
24/7.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And so when I hear about, like, back in the day when these circuit rider preachers were, you know, they'd ride by themselves on horseback through the wilderness.
Carrying guns.
They carried guns.
Yep.
And it was for protection against wild beasts, wild animals,
Sure.
bears, wolves, whatever.
Sure.
And from people who
Robbers,
and
right.
thieves and
Murderers,
whatever. And
whatever.
I think that's fair. And so the question is, as us, should we have the right to do it? Yes, but if the government says you can't open carry in this state, great. As American, you have the ability to leave that state if you want.
Sure.
And if you don't,
Or
abide by the laws.
you have the ability, there's a court system to
Right.
say, hey, I have this right. It's in the Constitution. It's in the amendments. Or, you know, so you have the right to fight it legally.
Mm-hmm. And if you do that, I will say that you will be Christians who disagree with you will go at you and go after you.
Sure.
But I think it's fair if a church says we want to have an armed security team. Now, the thing I like about our church is our guys are also all CPR certified. They're also watching out for the kids. So they're not just trying to walk around and shoot somebody's lights out in case there's an active shooter.
Right.
They're literally the fact of, and I know our security team feels this, the fact of you're trusting us to, you give us your kids and then you leave.
Right.
This is our responsibility. If anything happens, we have to answer for it. And we
Right.
want to make sure that we do everything in our power to do that. And so I
Sure.
think that is a correct mindset.
Right.
So do I think guns and protections and security teams in churches are okay? I do. I don't actually like it, though. If you're not part of the security team, leave your gun at home. I'm also a big believer in that. Or leave it in your car. And again, that's coming from a city boy.
But yeah, is that so responsible, though, leaving it in your car where somebody could break in, grab the gun? Now they have a weapon to charge in with.
Right. And
So
it's true.
to me,
so leave it at home.
That's, well, but it's their rights. And it's not infringing upon any laws of God or this government.
Right. But if a pastor requests, like, hey, we only want people with firearms that that have gone through our training in this church, is that fair for a pastor to say?
It would be fair for him to say, but not necessarily fair for him to enforce without the backing of the eldership board.
Yeah, and I don't know what the rules are in the government about that. I really don't know.
I don't think they can. I don't think you can. I don't think you can say no.
You can just say this is what we
because
prefer.
if you're allowing some and you're not allowing others, it's called discrimination.
And I will say, but if a pastor says that, is it our right to humbly submit to that elder?
Sure.
You know?
But again, I think there's a process behind it, or else we'd have a dictatorship in the pastoralship.
Right.
So there can be a, hey, let's talk about this. Hey, I want to get the other
Or you're
elders in here.
like, or the fact, and that's the
or
other thing
I
with
have or have the right to leave.
And the nice thing with our security team, and because I don't want my kids to walk around thinking these guys have guns. I don't know what's going to happen.
But see,
But our security team always.
that's a misconception because of lack of training and guns in the home. People are scared of tools. If I grabbed a hammer and carried a hammer around, are you going to be scared of that hammer?
No.
Why?
because it's a hammer that you hammer nails in because you're on a job.
But there's been almost just as many killings with the hammer as there has been with knives and other weapons. So why aren't you scared of the hammer? Because it kills just about as many people as guns. But you're not scared of the hammer.
Probably also the fact that a gun can kill someone from long distance.
But what? But okay, so
it's a legitimate scary thing.
Sure.
You hear of stray bullets, you don't hear of stray hammers.
Well, okay, I get that. But you're not scared of a hammer, are you?
Nope.
It kills. I mean, we can look up the statistics.
I got 4 of them at home.
But you're not scared of it because you're used to the tool.
Mm-hmm.
If you were brought up and used to the gun, which is a tool, and knew how to properly handle it, you wouldn't be as scared of it. I'm not scared of it. I'm not scared of a gun, and I don't want my kids to fear a gun. Because guns aren't scary. It's the people that have the guns that are scary.
It's true. It's true. But I think the scary thing is if you want to kill me with a hammer, you got to be close.
Right. But if
a gun, literally someone can fire it in the air and then who knows what happens.
If Scott, and I don't know if Scott owns a gun or carries a gun or not.
I know he doesn't carry one.
If Scott carried a gun, I would not be scared that Scott carried a gun. Why? Because I trust Scott.
Mm-hmm.
If an unknown person carries a gun, I'm going to be on my guard because I don't know that person.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not scared of the gun. I'm scared of the person.
Right.
Not the gun. The gun can't do anything.
And that's why I actually think it's okay for an elder team to be like, we really only want people who are trained.
Do you realize that at any moment somebody could push a button and kill you, all of America right now? It's called nuclear bombs.
Mm-hmm.
That should be more scary than anything because the people who have them.
Right. And I agree with that.
But without the people pushing the button, they're just inanimate objects that don't do anything.
Mm-hmm. And I agree with that, but the problem is there's so much sin in the world, and that's where that question comes is, you catch anyone on a wrong day, on a wrong moment, on a hair trigger.
Sure, I could kill you with this right here.
That would suck if you
I kill you with anything in this room. I mean, I kill you with the chair and plunging you to death.
Right.
It's all about, so I can't be scared of every little object that's around.
Mm-hmm.
I have to just be on guard of the person that's around. And that's the mindset that needs to be switched in this country. It's not I can kill you with anything. I can kill you with a pencil.
It's true.
Throw it through your eye and you're done.
I watched Batman.
Yeah, exactly. Did you see the Joker? Come on now. Yeah. So I mean, that's the retraining. We want to abolish one thing, but not other things. You know, automobiles kill more people than guns, but you still drive a car.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
You take that risk all the time. So and let me tell you something. People are stupid out there and unintentionally, but they hurt people. Unintentionally, but they hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
That's scary.
And that's why I go back to, it's when it's our time, it's our time.
Sure.
If we want to base our stuff off Nehemiah,
sure,
he did it, to protect his people, and he set up guards and all these different things because there was active people actually dying. Mm-hmm. And if there's active people all over the place, 24/7 dying all around me, I'm gonna have something.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this is where it gets hairy. Is the fact of on both sides there's extremes, and I think both extremes are wrong. To be honest with you, anything on the far extremes, I think, are not helpful. Sure. But it's more of, on the middle ground of what's safe, what's fair, what's American, what's Christian. I get nervous when I see people fighting for more. They put more energy into gun and gun rights than they ever have with actually the gospel and the kingdom.
Oh, I agree.
I think that's where I struggle.
Sure.
I think that's where I actually
struggle. I'm right there with you. I think it's wrong. I think Christians should be more focused on the gospel and taking the gospel out into the world than they are on the rights that they may or may not be losing.
Mm-hmm.
Let the people that aren't saved fight that fight. I mean, there's enough patriots that aren't saved around here.
And I'm not saying that Christians shouldn't, because Daniel was involved with government.
And I'm fine with that too, but I'm saying our main focus shouldn't be that.
Make calling sure.
So, but I also don't want people to forget that a gun in the hands of nobody is an inanimate object,
mm-hmm.
and a rock in the hands of a murderer will kill you.
And I agree with that sentiment. I 100% agree with that sentiment. It's more the fact of, are you putting your trust in your faith, in your protection in the gun, or in God? And you have the gun as protection, but that's not what you're ultimately praying for. I think that's where I'm.
And that applies to every aspect of life.
100%.
I mean, for income, for stress levels. I mean,
Dan, you talking to me right now?
I wasn't. I'm saying it applies to all. I mean, driving my car. I tell my daughters, and Noelle will say this all the time: "Daddy, you coming home tonight?" "Yep." "If Jesus lets you come home?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." If God, Jesus wills that I be home tonight and I make it back to you, I'll be home. If not, I'll be with Jesus. And she knows that at 3.5 years old. Hey, I come back because of the will of God. That's it. It's the only thing that protects me. It's not my time.
And I think that's a good way to end it, is the fact of both you and I are very, God wills what God wills. He's not the author of evil. He uses it for his glory and his purpose. And
I like to say he allows it.
But we also see that God uses tyrannical people to literally redirect his people, like Babylon and the Persians and the Medes. Like, he uses
and he hardens
governments in order to do it, in order to bring people back to him. Yeah. Right. And it's something that we don't understand, and we never will. But that's okay. I mean, it's hard to understand it. It's hard to be okay with it.
Well, we're not God, so.
We're not God. Sometimes I tell my kids, you'll know when you're older. I hated that as a kid, but it's true.
Yep. All right, let's wind this down because we're at almost an hour and a half.
How about we just jump to fun facts? I think we gave our fun. Yeah, I think we gave our thoughts. Ready for some fun facts?
Let's do it.
Time for fun facts with Fuller.
How about this, dude? So I don't know what the fun fact is, so I'm going to eat my peanut M&Ms while you do some fun facts.
Yeah, I know. That's just, yeah.
Oh, you're crazy, bro.
Yeah, I know.
All right, give me the fun fact of the day. I don't know what this one is either. Two for two. I don't know what they are.
Before the 1800s, people had a first and a second sleep.
Wait. Back up. Say that again.
Hey, you can't talk with your mouth full. You got to be quiet now.
Sorry. But back that up. I like this idea.
Before the 1800s, people had a first and second sleep. You were not going to like it right now. Okay. They would sleep 3 to 4 hours.
Oh, no.
Wake up for 2 to 3 hours.
No.
Do some sort of activity, and then go back to sleep until morning.
But why?
So if you went to bed at 9.
I guess that's what I did on Tuesday. I went to bed at 8, woke up at 10, and was up at 2.
So
that was awful.
So if you go to bed at 9, so my typical bedtime during the week is 9 o'clock. I'd have to wake up at 1, stay up till 3 or 4, and then go back to sleep for a couple more hours, and then wake back up. Nah, let this guy sleep through the night.
I like you sleep for 8 hours or 7 hours, and then around 1 o'clock you take an hour nap, and then you wake up and you go again. That's what I like. I like my naps. I enjoy my naps.
We all can't work from home.
Oh, I'm talking about Sunday afternoon, bro. This ain't working from home.
Oh, Sunday, yeah, nappy.
Sunday afternoon nap.
Give me the nappy.
Oh my goodness. You know what? I'm kind of curious to hear from our people if are Sunday naps a thing everywhere? Because you know what? Sunday naps are different. You go to church with the family, good lunch.
Lunch, I turn on a football game, I fall asleep. It's like Thanksgiving.
I turn on Octonauts and I fall asleep. That's what we do. But either way, guys, we know this conversation went long, so we hope you're here with us towards the end, because this is a big conversation.
This is like an unbelievable conversation.
I feel like it, but instead of two different people coming out with pitted arguments, we're trying to just... What do Christians do, man? We're trying to work this out. And that's what I like about this, our specific, sometimes with these questions, is you and I, we work this out on the fly, bro.
Right. Yep.
So, but you know what? The conversation, we always say, never ends. It continues. So if you guys have any other thoughts on this matter, we know some of you guys are going to have a lot of thoughts on this one. Yeah. Feel free to email us, text us, DM us, call us, text us, whatever you got to do. But reach out to us because we want to continue the conversation with you. So hit us up, realtalkchristianpodcast.com. We'll take you to every link you need to go. I got peanut M&M stuck in my throat.
That's what happens.
Facebook, Instagram, leave us a voicemail, text. You can email us at realtalkchristianpodcast@gmail.com and find all the information about us, the show, or other episodes, and the show notes all at realtalkchristianpodcast.com.
That's it, bro.
That's it. You don't want to add anything?
You're good, man.
Normally you add like the CSB or the store or whatever.
I like to switch it up every once in a while. You can call us at 574-400-5352. Again, 574-400-5352.
And you never know when we might call you back.
You never know.
I'm eating more peanut M&Ms because this is really good. Halloween candy for the win, bro.
We're just very random with our callbacks and peanut M&Ms.
Peanut M&Ms and callbacks, that's how we do in RTC. You'll never know what we're going to talk about. And sometimes we don't even know we're talking about those 2 days before. But just like always, every Thursday, it's hard to talk peanut M&Ms. Every Thursday, we drop that new episode, 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. So I guess that wraps up this episode, huh?
Yes, sir.
So, cool. Until next time then, guys.
Take it easy.